Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is going to be my review for Bates Motel Season 2, Episode 7, Presumed Innocent. And this episode was amazing. I really love this episode. Probably my favorite episode of the season, especially the ending. I feel like the ending has there's a lot in the ending that happened. I'm really interested in seeing what's going to happen there. And, let's just get to this episode, because I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great episode, and definitely my favorite episode of the season. So the main plot of this episode, what I like about this episode is we've mainly focused on two things. You know, the whole Norman and Norma thing, and then the Dylan and Zayn. That's basically all we focused on in this episode. I like that, we didn't really see much of Norma's plot. We did in the beginning, but it wasn't too much of it. Basically, this episode is all about, Sheriff Romero and all of them questioning Norman about, him killing Cody's dad. So, Norma, at this point, has no idea what's happened. You know, she doesn't know where Norman's gone after their fight. You know, she's frantically searching for him. And she leaves him a voice message, hoping to talk out their issues. Then she very quickly finds out that Norman is being taken to the police station after his violent fight with Cody's dad, which left him dead at the bottom of the staircase. Basically, Norma is very surprised at the amount of work that comes with her seat as on the council, as well as the fact that she had an office at City Hall. She meets a councilman who points out the coincidence that she took Lee Berman's seat after his death as Sheriff Romero interrupts the meeting. He takes her outside, tells her something has happened to Norman, and that Cody's dad is dead. So, Cody called the police, as we find out, and then Norma rushes to the police station with Romero as Norman is booked at the station. They take his DNA and mugshots, and then the police explain to Norman that accidents need to be investigated. And they're taking evidence from him to figure out what exactly happened. You know, they're not really sure what happened, and they want to know. So, Remo tells Dylan that, so then what happens? So basically, then Norma is getting upset. Actually, no, Emma shows up at the police station to check on Norman and Norma. Norma hugs her and tells her she's a good girl for helping them. If you think about it, Emma's the only person who really, hasn't done anything bad to, Norma. You know, she's the only person who hasn't betrayed Norma or anything like that. I don't like the lady. Sorry. So yeah, she's the only person who... Now it's too dark. That's better. She's the only person who hasn't betrayed Norma yet, so, you know, that's the only thing that Emma's done, and I think that's really, big, that, you know, Emma's the only person who hasn't betrayed Norma. So, Norma's getting really upset at this point when she doesn't get to see Norman, because, basically, the guy is telling her no, she's like, oh, I helped you out, and this is the thanks I get. And when she's finally granted access, she's upset to see her son beaten and in jail. You know, she has no idea what happened. All she knows is that there was a very violent fight, and that's all she knows. So Norman tells Norma the whole story of what happened with Cody's dad, and the whole time he keeps saying it was just an accident, it was just an accident. And I personally don't think it was an accident. I think he did it on purpose. I think Norman knew what he was doing. He was trying to protect Cody, but I do not think her killing Cody's dad was an accident. I think he meant to do that. Basically, Norma warns him not to tell the cops about his blackouts. Norman senses that his mother doesn't fully believe his story, and Norma's angry when Romero is questioning Norman without her in the room. You know, he's kind of upset about that. So Norman tells Romero what happened at Cody's house, and Norman finds out that Cody will go live with her sister in Indiana, and Romero seems sympathetic to Norman's situation. Norma's worried and sees George comes through the door. Norman tells George exactly what happened, and basically... George says, basically, Norma tells him the whole story of, you know, what Norman did, and George said, well, if that's what happened, then I don't think you should worry about it. So, you know, he's basically telling her that Norman will be okay, So, then we get a pretty big scene, because we then see Norma with Cody at the police station, and, we don't exactly know, you know, how Cody's feeling. Cody's really upset at this point. But Norma begs Cody not to tell the cops about Norman's blackouts, because basically she thinks that if that were to happen, they would, you know, Norman would have to go to jail, and all this stuff would happen to him. So she's basically telling Cody, don't tell anyone about his blackouts. So then Emma meets with Dylan, and basically she tells him, you know, what's going on with Norman, and she tells Dylan, how could you be so, how could you not give a shit about your brother? And Dylan tells Emma he knows that Norman was taken down to the station, and Emma tells Dylan that he should be there for Norman, but Dylan says he and Norman only care about each other, and that he's not going to be there for his brother. So yeah, that's that. I was pretty upset with Dylan. I think, you know, I like Dylan as a character, but he really was being a big dick there. I mean, he's really focused on this whole drug thing and everything that he didn't even listen to Emma. So I have a feeling that something bad could, you know, I had a feeling that something bad would happen to Dylan, and something bad does happen to Dylan. It doesn't have to do with Norman or anything. But I have a feeling that Norman's going to find out that Dylan could have saved him, and it's not going to be good between Dylan and Norman when they meet up again. I think it's going to be pretty bad between them. So George tells Norma that he's there for her no matter what happens. They embrace as Norman walks out to see them. Seems a bit on edge by his presence. We don't really know why he's so on edge, but he finally sees Cody for the first time in a very long time. She doesn't speak to him. You know, not in a very long time, but in a while. And she's not speaking to him for some reason, but she gives Norma this look. And Norman leaves the station to get some fresh air. Romero tells Norma they can go home. And the next morning, Norman asks his mother if George thinks he's a murderer. Norman calls out his mom for not believing his story. So then we get a really nice scene. We can see that Norman and Emma are getting a lot closer. It seems like each episode they get closer and closer and closer. In fact, we didn't hear anything about Emma's boyfriend, Gunnar. It didn't even come up in the episode. I don't know if they're together still or not. She might have broken up with him after the whole thing in the, at the lake. She might have probably broken up with him because of that. But whatever happened, you know, whatever happened, basically, Norman tells Emma that he was mad that Cody told her about his blackouts, and that she told his mother. Emma apologizes, and he then tells Emma that he's happy that she was there for him. You know, he basically says, at first I was upset with you, but I'm not upset with you now. I understand why you did what you did. Somebody needed to know about the blackouts, and since you knew, I'm not going to get upset with you about it. And I really like that scene. I like that we saw him kind of actually being really nice to Emma. I like seeing that. So, basically, then what happens is, so yeah, that happened. And then Norman gets a text from Cody and rushes outside to meet her. He apologizes to her, but Cody opens up about the wrath of her father. Cody tells Norman not to blame himself and tells him goodbye to go live with her aunt. Basically, she tells him that they won't keep in touch and he's never going to see her again, basically. My question is this the last we're going to see of Cody? I don't really know. It seems like when characters leave town this season, they stay gone. Like, for example, when Bradley left, I thought we were going to see her again, but she's gone now. So, you know, I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen now with the rest of, with everyone else, you know. I'm interested in seeing that, because I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, I don't know if we're going to see Cody again or not, but I guess we'll just have to see. I'm not sure if we will, but, again, we're just going to have to see if we see Cody again. I'm not sure if we will. Then what happens is, basically, Romero returns to the motel and tells Norman that Cody's father's death has officially been ruled as an accident. So Norma runs to tell Norman the good news, finds him at the top of the stairs. He tells his mom that Cody spilled the beans about his blackouts. And, you know, Norman says, oh, you're going to be okay. But Norman's not happy for some reason. We don't know why, but he's not happy. And he becomes very, very angry all of a sudden, out of nowhere, basically. And, he wants to know what he does during his blackouts. And Norma tells her son that she won't tell him for his own good. She tells him to never ask her about it again. And Norman's he's tired of this. He's tired of, you know, not being told about his blackouts. He basically he runs out. He doesn't know what else to do. And he ends up running out on Norma. So, I don't know if he's coming back or not, but, you know, he's sick of it. He's sick of people not telling him about his blackouts. And he feels betrayed. And then the very end of the episode, the weirdest thing happens. Romero gets this call that Norman's DNA sample matched the semen sample in Miss Watson that they couldn't identify. So yes, the Miss Watson storyline has finally come back after all this time. We've been waiting and waiting for it to come back. It's finally come back, and I'm really happy that it's back, because it kind of, as I said, just went away, and I was kind of surprised that it just went away. But overall, you know, that was the episode. That was the main plot. Really, really love the main plot. I love where they're taking it. And the only other thing that happened was Dylan and Zayn. Now, partially the reason that Dylan didn't help Norman was because of the subplot. So basically, Remo tells Dylan that he knows he's sleeping with the boss, Zayn's sister, Jody, and Zayn tells Dylan he's got some guys to do a job, but that's not his concern. Dylan's spying on Zayn to try and find out what he's up to, as he's promised Jody that he'd keep an eye on the situation without Zayn knowing he's running things. And, by the way, no Jody in this episode. Kind of disappointed by that. I like Jody as a character, but we didn't see her in this episode. Zayn tells Dylan he knows Jody told him to watch his back and that Dylan should watch out when it comes to sleeping with his sister. So, then what happens is Zayn approaches Dylan and tells him to come with him and his group, and tells Remo to go with a different group. They take the guys to a remote location where they plan to kill the same group who tried to shoot them before. Dylan tells Zayn he's not with him in his decision, and then hits Dylan in the face. And I mean, I'm just thinking, Dylan, you gotta do this. If you don't do this, it's like a life or death thing here. He hits Dylan in the face with his gun, leaves him laying on the ground. Remo goes with the group as Dylan only sees what's happening in flashes as he's out, in and out of consciousness, and struggles to hide himself in the bushes. So yeah, that was definitely really, really interesting, and that was all that really happened in the subplot, but that was the episode, and it was absolutely amazing. I loved this episode. I thought it was a fantastic episode. I loved everything about it. It was just really, really amazing. One of the things I loved was the ending. You know, we now have the Miss Watson storyline back, which I never thought would come back into play, but here we are, and now the Miss Watson storyline is back, and I'm actually really happy about that, because I was wondering, you know, what's going to happen to that Miss Watson storyline, and now we're back to it, so I'm really interested in seeing where that's going to go. Also, are we going to see Cody again? I'm not really sure. I don't know if we're going to see Cody again or not, but it seems like the only person who's on everybody's good side is Emma. You know, Dylan's not mad at Emma, Norman's not mad at Emma, Cody's not mad at Emma, Norma's not mad at Emma. Nobody's mad at Emma. It seems like Emma's the only one that no one's mad at. So, I still feel they're setting up Norman and Emma for the end of the season. I feel like by the end of the season, Norman and Emma are going to be together. Even though I feel they're going to end the season on a huge cliffhanger, I feel Norman and Emma will be together by the end of the season, because I keep thinking they're building that up. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like they're building that up. One of the other things I loved about this episode was just the tension throughout the whole episode. There was so much tension in this episode. The tension was building up throughout the whole episode, especially towards the end. Now we have all this conflict between Norma and Norman, and Norman's just, he's sick of people telling him, you know, about his blackouts. He's sick of not being told what happens with his blackouts. He's sick of people not just not telling about him. He's sick of it. He's sick of not knowing anything. And he wants to know something more about his blackouts. He's sick of not knowing what's going on with them. So, let me know what you guys saw this episode. Also, the subplot I thought was also really good with Dylan. I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen with him. I hope Dylan's going to be okay. I don't know if he's going to be okay. I guess we're just going to have to see if he's okay, but, that's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens there. I'm sure Dylan's going to be okay, but I'm wondering what's going to happen to that. I'm sure the next time they tell him to do something really bad, I have a feeling they're going to tell him to do something really bad, and he's going to do it, and then something bad's going to happen to Dylan because of it. I feel like that's where we're going with this plot. Even though I'm not as into it, last night's episode really got me into that plot, and now I'm really interested in seeing where that's going to go. But yeah, that's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for tonight's episode of Glee, which actually looks like a really funny episode. So, yeah, once again, this episode was perfect. I loved it. Best episode of the season by far. I cannot wait to see what happens. What's going to happen to Norman and Miss Watson, you know, what happens there. Now, I thought one interesting thing, I know this is really weird, what if Miss Watson actually faked her death? It kind of makes sense, I guess, because what if she had sex with Norman, and then she faked her death? Maybe she didn't die. Or she killed herself. Maybe Norman left and she just... you know, blew her brains out. Maybe she did that. She could have easily done that. I don't know if Miss Watson would do that, but she could have done that. I'm not really sure if she would, but I guess we'll just have to see. But that's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Okay, bye.